Hi everyone! Thanks for joining us for this month's webinar, The Art of Inspiration, 3 Secrets to Engage, Energize, and Enthrall. I'm joined today by our presenter, Justina Chen. A little about her. Justina is the co-founder of Upstart Agency in Seattle, a story strategist to leaders, and an award-winning novelist. She has worked for numerous presidents at Microsoft and is seen as a thought leader on executive communications. Her YA novels have won several accolades, including the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, and she graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Stanford University. Thanks so much for joining us today, Justina.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about my favorite topic of all, storytelling. You know, I actually wanted to be a writer since I was in 2nd grade. I wrote my first 50-page novella. But it wasn't until I was at Stanford, first quarter, freshman year, that I took a writing class. And the professor told me in front of everybody, Justina, you have no talent. You will never be published. And I believed him. Here's the thing. At that moment, I realized the power of educators, how one word could actually demolish somebody, but one great story can lift them up and encourage them. That's why I am excited to be here today with you as communicators for schools. Your job is to inspire belief, not just in education as an institution, but trust and belief in your specific school system or your specific school. We at Upstart Agency love educators. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the tips and techniques I've drawn, not just from my corporate storytelling work, but also as a novelist. Here are some of my books that I've written, but the one that I'm especially proud of sharing with you is The Art of Inspiration, Lead Your Own Story. It is an encapsulation of the philosophy of the Upstart Agency, why storytelling is important, and as well, it's going to give you a snippet of what we're going to share with you today in half an hour, which itself is a snippet of a broader one-day workshop that we lead on inspiration and storytelling. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about truly our belief at Upstart Agency about the plot twist of extraordinary leadership that is powered by storytelling. And specifically, we're going to talk about 3 different things in terms of story. First of all, the glory of story. What is storytelling? Why is it important? We're going to go through actually 2 must-tell stories that you should have in your arsenal as communicators for schools. And finally, I'm going to share with you 3 tips and techniques, narrative devices drawn from my work as a creative writer, as well as a corporate storyteller, that leaders have been able to use to great effect. And hopefully you will be able to start using those today. First and foremost, let's talk about storytelling. We have seen time and time and time again how a magical story truly inspires change. I think Steve Sinek so aptly talked about this in his TED Talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Over 50 years ago, 250,000 people congregated on the Capitol Mall. This was before the time of Tumblr, Twitter, tweeting, and texting. People knew where to show up, and they knew when to show up. And they showed up not because he had a PowerPoint plan to share with them, but he shared his story, his vision of what the country could be, united together, equality for all. That 16-minute speech that he shared didn't just fire up the 250,000 people who were watching him. It fired up a nation to turn his dream into a plan and his plan into action. I see the same inspiration happen when my leaders get up and speak, whether it's about finances and securing the financial security for all Americans, especially those who are at the most at risk. And after this leader gets up and speaks, what gets tweeted? Inspirational. I see this as well with my leaders at Microsoft, including the former leader of Xbox. When he had to deliver some very difficult news, he shared a story. And what happened? The best tweet of all time old white guys in suits shouldn't sound this good. Inspirational. My leaders will ask me, what is going on? You know, what has changed to help them connect better with their audiences? And it's because they're actually drawing on this body of research about the power of storytelling. So as communicators, I would actually assign to you as homework to read Brain Rules if you have not read it already. It's written by Dr. John Medina, who is a neuroscientist at the University of Washington, in Brain Rules. And what he does is he encapsulates the latest and greatest neuroscience research into layman's terms. And there's a bunch of research in there that is actually so applicable to us as communicators and storytelling. Most importantly, how does information actually move from short-term memory to long-term memory? And isn't that really the baseline objective of all storytelling, for people to remember your message? Well, what he's found is it's story. Story that evokes the biggest emotions. Stories that make you cry, that make you laugh, that fill you with joy. Those are the stories people remember. So if you are able to tell your message, communicate your message through the auspices of a story, that is how people will actually remember your message a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. As well, I love this new research that was conducted by, that was published by the Harvard Business Review. It's the values research. Basically, it says that the higher up on the values pyramid you go with your storytelling, the more connected people are to your cause, your issue, your institution. So typically, we stay at the very bottom level, functional values. Oh, this is going to save you time. This is going to help you out. But the more you push up the values chain, the more resonant your message is. And what is the ultimate purpose of education? It is to fulfill people's potential. That's at the very tippy top of the values research, the values chain. So make sure that your storytelling is actually hitting higher on the values pyramid. Another bit of research that I find so interesting is this brand research, where Fast Company summarized some research, and it basically said, you know, popular brands stopped hammering away at share of mind. Instead, what they were doing was expanding to achieve a share of emotion share. And what kind of content really resonated with people? Content that was funny, useful, beautiful, inspiring. So as you start finding your stories and telling your stories, remember to think about, are they actually beautiful? Are they useful? Is there a little bit of humor in there? Is it ultimately inspiring? So let's talk about some of the stories that should be in your arsenal. I love heritage stories. Heritage stories are often talked about in terms of the origin story. Who are you? How did you get started? I love this from a woman perspective when Levi's actually loud and proud proclaimed, "We invented blue jeans." So simple and so true. That is their heritage. Working with another school earlier this year, I loved their heritage story. Did you know that their school was started by one teacher, one classroom, but that teacher hopped into a canoe every single morning to make sure that he could get to his students in that classroom. That is dedication. And that is a powerful origin story. So as you are thinking about your own heritage story for your school district, ask yourself these questions. How did the school start? What was the impetus for that? What values and culture do you invoke when you share your heritage story? And can you distill your heritage story down to one single line? We invented blue jeans. Can you tell your story that cleanly and that concisely? The second story that I absolutely love sharing is the quest. So often, our school principals, the superintendents, college presidents talk about this in terms of purpose, our mission. But from a storyteller's perspective, when we invoke the word quest, we invite people on our adventure. And I love what Kate DiCamillo, who is a children's book author, wrote in The Tale of Despero. Say it, reader. Say the word quest out loud. It's an extraordinary word, so small and yet so full of wonder, so full of hope. That's what I love about talking about our missions and our purpose in terms of a quest. A quest is a come along on this adventure. A quest is an invitation for everybody to join in. A quest already sets out that things are going to be hard, right? Because what adventure is always smooth sailing? There will be bumps, there will be obstacles, but in a quest you know that the team of heroes will prevail. That's why I love using the word quest. So when you think about it, how do you actually share quest in your storytelling? Well, you turbocharge it with heritage. Okay, remember Levi Strauss, where they said, we invented blue jeans? Let's hear how they use their heritage and to tell their quest story so that people believe that they will succeed in their quest. So here's what Levi Strauss says. Anyone can make a pair of blue jeans, but Levi Strauss, we made the first pair of blue jeans in 1873, and we draw upon our heritage to continuously reinvent the blue jean for generation after generation. Did you see the heritage? Hey, we invented the first blue jean. What is our quest? We're going to continue to reinvent it for generation after generation. Do we believe in their quest? Do we believe that they will succeed in their quest? Why, yes, we do. They have a history, a track record of creating blue jeans that bend and shape and are designed for each era of time. So we do believe that they will succeed in their quest. So some of the things that you could ask yourself as you consider your district, your school's quest. What is the quest? What are you ultimately trying to do with your school system? Why is that quest urgent now, in this day and age, with everything going on in the world? Why does that quest matter? What's at stake? If your quest fails, if you fail to educate the children of your community, what happens not just to the child and the family, but to the community and the world at large? What is at stake? Why should people really listen to you? Think about some of the obstacles that you have overcome with your quest already. What obstacles are still lay in the future? Can you lay that out for people? And finally, think about this. What strengths from your heritage will make you ultimately successful? So those are 2 of the 4 must-tell stories. In my full-day workshop, we go through all 4 stories, which also include the hero story. Who are the heroes of your quest? Why should we believe them? Why are they the right leaders for this moment in time? What makes your superintendent the right person right now to lead your district through the challenges ahead? Why is your principal the right leader to focus in on the specific issues your school is facing? Okay, so we talk about the hero story. And the 4th story that we talk about in the full-day workshop is the thought leadership story. Basically, everybody wants to be a thought leader. But what does thought leadership truly mean? So we go through what thought leadership is and how you create a thought leadership story for your school or your district. Now, my favorite part of all as a writer, as you know, it's storycraft. You know, I took this great writing workshop a few years ago. It was led by Patty Lee Gouch, an editorial director for Philomel Books. She is recently retired. And what she exhorted the 20 published authors there was that we were creating good stories, but our world demanded great stories. Stories that would burrow into our readers' hearts. Stories that wouldn't just make them cry one little tear, but weep. Stories that wouldn't make them chuckle to themselves, but laugh out loud. And she said, the only way that we could actually create wonderful, great, transcendent stories is if we knew all of the tools in our toolkit. So I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite narrative tools. And again, in the full day workshop, we go through all 7 tools. But today, these are the 3 that I think you can use immediately in your storytelling now. The first one is called hooks and conclusions. And as storytellers yourselves, I am sure you are the master of the hook. How do you hook the reader, the listener, in to your story? Right? What are the first couple of lines? And actually, when you think about it, in terms of editors, when they're looking at an unsolicited manuscript or a solicited one that they have asked for, they will actually look at the hook. Hey, is this grabbing me as a reader? Do I want to read more? Similarly for us, when we write anything for our communities, are we grabbing them? Do we make them want to lean in and listen to more? Okay. The second part, the bookend of the hook, is actually the conclusion. A conclusion should echo the hook, the beginning of the story, but amplify it, leave us in a better place. So I would actually suggest that you take a look at Rick Riley's backstories, the columns that he used to write for Sports Illustrated. He is the master of the hook and the conclusion. So let's take a look at his send-off column when he announced that he was retiring as a sports columnist. Let's look at how he masterfully uses the hook and then amplifies what he's talking about in the conclusion. In his hook, I am the son of a drunk, a man who was more concerned with where his next whiskey was coming from than where I was going. Why is that masterful writing? First, it's completely unadorned. There's no frippery in his writing. It is vulnerable. He's actually sharing his story with us. There's beautiful lyricism, where his next whiskey was coming from, where I was going. All right, so that is his hook. Let's see how he handles the conclusion at the end of his column, where he does announce, I'm actually retiring now, but he pays homage to all of these sports figures, from high school teams, college teams, retired professional athletes, sports commentators, and everything that he's learned from them to become a better man. So here's how he ends it. Life circles are funny, aren't they? This Sunday, the U.S. Open golf tournament wraps up, but for once, I won't be there. Instead, for the first time in my life, I'll be home with my kids on Father's Day. Do you see how the column comes full circle? But it leaves us we are assured that he's left in a better place. He is now home with his kids on Father's Day versus being a son of a drunk, right? That's beautiful. So when you take a look at your own writing, your own storytelling, look hard at the hook. Are you hooking people in? And look very hard at your conclusion. Is it actually amplifying what you had set forth in the opening? The second tool that I love are metaphors. Metaphors are actually the shortest story of all. There's neuroscience research that actually demonstrates that the more technical information is, the more receptive our brains are to understanding that difficult material in terms of a metaphor. That's why when NASA found a planet that they actually thought could support life, the scientists went on, technical jargon. The storyteller came out and said, you know what, this is the Goldilocks of planets. Not too hot, not too cold. People instantly understood why this planet could sustain life. Similarly, I love to use this Rumi quote to get my metaphorical juices going when I know I need to put in a metaphor in my writing. I love this. What Rumi said, be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. Be a lamp, a lifeboat, or a ladder. So think about your school, your district. What object are you? And are you using those objects, that metaphor, in your storytelling? Particularly if you're sharing a study, a research study that you have commissioned, are you using metaphors to explain that material so that the audience, parents, the rest of the community understand the implications and the impact of that study? My last tool that I'd love to share with you today is the magical object. Magical objects are so important in storytelling. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in his famous essay, Tree and Leaf, about the importance of symbols. Concrete physical objects symbolize greater meaning. That's why we wear wedding rings. Wings represent eternity. That's why the quest for the Lord of the Rings was distilled down to the ring, all right? You think about the magical objects that we have around. For instance, in children's hospitals around the country, usually there's an oncology ward. In the oncology ward of several children's hospitals is a bell. That bell is rung once when the child leaves the hospital for the last time, not as a cancer victim, but as a cancer survivor. All of the medical team, surgeons, the doctors, the nurses, the staff, they all gather around the child. The child rings the bell. That bell is a magical object. So think to yourselves, what magical object do you have for your school or your district? Are you using that magical object to create emotional impact in your storytelling? How? How are you using that? I have to say, the storytelling that you do, especially now, it is creative work. And I love what Stephen Pressfield wrote in his love letter to creative people, storytellers like us in the War of Art. Creative work is a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got. Our world demands and needs the healing power of story. And I am asking you to do your absolute best work. Tell us the best story. Our students, our children deserve it. Thank you so very much. It has been a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Justina, for that. Starting today, October 10th, 2017, for the next 48 hours, you can get Justina's book, The Art of Inspiration, on Amazon for just $5.95. So go check out her book on Amazon. And now I'm going to open this up to questions. If you would like to type a question under the question panel, Justina will be answering them. Okay. So Justina, where do you think are some of the best platforms to share your story?
Oh, goodness. Okay. That is such a good question. I'm not personally familiar with education-specific platforms, but I do know that social media is a great way to hook people in. And if your school maintains a blog or a website that you want to direct them to that, then tell your best story in that short amount of space that you get with social media, and use that as a tickler to tell the larger story.
Great, thank you, Justina.
Thank you.
Next question. What do you do when you lack inspiration to write a good hook for a story?
Oh, that is, oh my gosh, that is like the writer's dilemma, isn't it? Particularly when you have a dry piece of dry story. Okay, this is when you must call upon every power that you have as a storyteller. And what I do is, part of it is just getting my creative juice flowing. So honestly, I do a couple of different things. One, it may sound silly, but I force myself to go on a field trip, which is basically a walk around the block. And I force myself to find 3 objects lying around on the ground, etc. And as I'm walking, I think about those 3 objects and how I would use them to start a story. So for instance, once I found a piece of red thread, I was just like, oh, red threads are the connectors in a Chinese folktale between souls. Souls that are meant to be together. Can I use that as a story start? You see, all of a sudden you're forcing yourself into storyteller brain. I think that's really important. The second is I will pick up a random magazine and I will flip through and I will just specifically look for visual images. Visual images. Again, that somehow knocks something loose in me where I am all of a sudden forced into storytelling mode. And I'll look at a picture and I'll say, how would I use that to start the story? So I would do those two things. And then I would go back and ask yourself, really, the big questions, which is, what is my intention? What do I want people, as Amy Tan wrote in her great book, Bone Setter's Daughter, what is my intention? What is in my heart? What do I really want the audience to feel that matches my head? And then I start writing. That's hard. How do I want them to feel? What do I want them to leave with? What do I want them to think as they're reading? And as the last word of my article, what do I really want them to do? How do I want to activate them? By doing those types of things, both creative and analytical work, that usually shakes free my storyteller.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, great. Well, thank you so much. If anyone has any other questions, you can certainly email me. I will be sending out a recording of this video. And thanks so much again today, Justina. That was really wonderful.
So much. It was a privilege to be here with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you.